Picture this: a moonless night in the jungles of Burma, 1945. A lone Gurkha soldier sits in his foxhole, his right arm shattered by enemy fire, hanging useless by his side. Around him, shadows move. Japanese soldiers, hundreds of them, closing in for the kill. They think he's finished. They think he's defenseless. But what they don't know is that this warrior, Lachhiman Gurung, has just transformed his pain into something the enemy will never forget. With only his left hand and a pile of grenades, he's about to write one of the most terrifying chapters in military history. This is the story of how one man became death itself. The night started quietly at the British outpost in Burma. Rifleman Lachhiman Gurung was on sentry duty. The air was thick and humid, but something felt wrong. Suddenly, grenades started raining down from the darkness. Japanese Type 97 grenades, their fuses hissing in the night. Lachhiman's training kicked in instantly. The first grenade landed near his position. He hurled it back. Another one came flying. He caught it mid-air and threw it back. Then a third grenade landed directly in his foxhole. He reached for it, knowing he had maybe 2 seconds. His fingers closed around the metal sphere. But this time, fate intervened cruelly. The grenade exploded in his hand. The blast was catastrophic. Lachhiman's right hand was destroyed. Shrapnel tore through his arm. The pain was beyond imagination, like being struck by lightning. But Lachhiman was a Gurkha. The motto, "Better to die than be a coward," was burned into his soul. Through the blinding pain, he heard the sound of Japanese boots charging. With his left hand, his only working hand, he made a choice that would become legendary. Next to him were boxes of grenades. He grabbed one with his left hand. He pulled the pin with his teeth, a technique that would shred most men's mouths, and hurled it into the darkness toward the approaching enemy. The explosion lit up the jungle. But they kept coming. Lachhiman grabbed another grenade. Pin pulled with teeth. Throw! Explosion! His left arm became a machine. For 4 hours, he held that position alone. The ground around his foxhole became a graveyard. Every time his vision blurred, he bit his own tongue to shock himself awake. As dawn broke, the Japanese finally retreated. When his fellow Gurkhas reached him, they found him still conscious, grenade in hand, surrounded by 31 dead enemy soldiers. Lachhiman Gurung was awarded the Victoria Cross. King George VI personally presented it. He survived, and his legacy as the one-handed demon remains one of the greatest stories of courage in history. The Japanese soldiers who survived that night were interviewed years later. One sergeant, Takashi Yamamoto, said, "We were told to take the hill at all costs. We lost 200 men. When we saw him in daylight, one man with one arm covered in blood, still ready to fight, we understood we had met something beyond a soldier. We had met a spirit that couldn't be killed." Even former enemies recognized they had encountered something extraordinary that night in Burma. Perhaps the most haunting detail of all, after the battle, medics found that Lachhiman's right hand, what remained of it, was still clenched. Even after amputation, they had to break the death grip to remove it from his arm. His body had locked into fighting mode so completely that even unconscious under anesthesia, he was still trying to hold a grenade. The muscles wouldn't release. It took surgical intervention to open that fist. His body had literally become a weapon. The kukri, the traditional Gurkha knife that Lachhiman carried that night, still exists. He never drew it. All his kills were with grenades thrown left-handed. But that curved blade, unused in his most famous battle, carries its own message. It represents the depth of Gurkha warrior skill. Even unarmed in practical terms, one hand destroyed, unable to wield his blade, he was still the deadliest person on that battlefield. The weapons didn't make him dangerous. He made the weapons dangerous. The final count was never perfectly accurate. Different sources cite 31, 87, or over 200 enemy casualties. The truth is lost to the chaos of battle. What is certain, a lone Gurkha with one working hand, armed only with grenades, held a strategic position against overwhelming odds for 4 hours. The real number that matters is one man who refused to surrender, refused to retreat, refused to die. One man who became immortal.